think I'm gonna wear my hat today. Haven't worn it in a while. What's going on, everyone? It's Eli with Common Sense. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to check out this video. And if you were recommended this video by the YouTube algorithm, it's fate, my friends. Today we're gonna be checking out 2 fragrances from the house of Nabeel. If you're on the hunt for Middle Eastern fragrances, consider checking out tripletraders.com, and if you use my code COMMONSCENTS, you can save 10%. I've actually done quite a bit of hauls from them, and I buy a lot of my fragrances from them. So it's like Triple Traders, Jomashop, and Fragrance Buy. Those are like my 3 that I usually get my stuff from. So if you want to peruse their site and check out some of the hidden gems and search for some of the good deals, use that code and save yourself a little bit of money. So for those of you who don't know, Nabeel is basically the parent company of the Spirit of Dubai. So the Spirit of Dubai is a very well-known Middle Eastern niche fragrance house. They have access to a ton of different raw materials and fragrance notes, and they are just known for using like 20 or so different notes. Like if you look on Fragrantica and look at the number of notes on any of their given fragrances, it's kind of funny. But what's also really cool is their parent company, Nabeel, is known for using just as many notes, and they really have access to a ton of different materials. And so they offer a slightly more affordable, I say slightly, it's way more affordable. These are like $30 to $40. But they make a lot of affordable fragrance offerings, especially for those who just are more casual with their wearing. So first up, we're gonna be taking a look at Fulad. Now, this box is really cool. Same with the other one. It's got a textured kind of tactile feel to it, so it almost feels a little bit rubbery, and you have some silver kind of metal flaking on the outside. It's embossed, and as you can see, you have the Nabeel, and it even says Nabeel's Originals up at the tops. Oh, this side. So here's the bottle for Nabeel's Fulad. Now this I actually bought off of the TikTok store. I never ever thought that I would be purchasing a fragrance off of TikTok. I do not like the shopping aspect of that app, but that is just my personal preferences, and setting those aside, I got this for a pretty good deal, around 30 bucks. So as you can see on this cap, it is quite an interesting and ornate cap. You have a miniature of what looks like a city, could be Dubai, I'm not entirely sure. I think it is Dubai, actually, now that I'm looking at it. You have the Burj Khalifa and some of the other buildings that are super tall. So if we feel this cap, it actually has quite a weight to it, and that's actually quite nice. I don't know if you can see this, but on the cap, it looks like there's some oxidization, and it almost looks like the metal material that they're using is starting to rust or just get a little bit oxidized. So it's turning a little bit brown, a little bit blue in some areas. I don't really mind that, especially because this is going to be sitting on my shelf for a while, but it's just something to bring up. You also have the bottle that looks like it's almost a super tall Middle Eastern tower. It kind of just reminds me of a guard tower. Let's check out this atomizer. Oh man, that is definitely reminding me of a Nishane fragrance. Nabeel's Fulad is going to be a twist on Nishane's Wulong cha, which actually translates to oolong tea. So that is a wonderful, wonderful fragrance from Nishane. If you haven't checked any of their fragrances out, I highly recommend ordering some decants. But that one is just a really nice, refreshing oolong tea with some orange spices. You have some bergamot, and it has a zesty kind of fig as well in it. But I think this one definitely adds some Middle Eastern and Oriental flair to it. There's something very creamy and almost buttery like in the opening to this one, so it smells gourmand, and it definitely adds a creamy kind of sandalwood and some rose to that oolong tea that's found in the Wulong cha. I feel like this fragrance did take me a little bit of time to warm up to, because at first I wasn't the biggest fan of the rose, the saffron, and just the kind of heavy incense that's added to that Wulong cha DNA. In fact, I wasn't the biggest fan of Wulong cha, but the more that I wear this and the more that I kind of smell it on my skin, and as it starts to warm up a little bit, I think I'm starting to appreciate it a lot more. Like I said earlier, this is going to have a lot more notes added to that Wulong cha kind of DNA. So this one definitely shares the bergamot and some of the orange zesty citruses, but at the same time you have quite a bit more spice, and it is definitely rose heavy, so it smells a little bit more smoky, and you definitely have some more florals in here. So there's also some clary sage that definitely makes it a little bit more aromatic and kind of opens up the airways, and it kind of makes way for all of the other fruity floral notes to come and just settle along your nasal passageway. That sounds really weird. but it basically just prepares the way and makes for a very smooth transition. That's what I'm trying to say. There's also quite a bit of benzoin in here that I'm kind of picking up, so it smells a little bit nutty, a little bit vanillic, and it also has some honey, so there is a bit of sweetness in the base. So whereas the original Wulong cha, it wasn't super sweet in the dry down, but I feel like this kind of ramps it up a little bit more and adds some of that kind of honey and benzoin sweetness in the base. And honestly, as this dries down, I feel like I'm also getting a little bit more incense, so it's smelling a lot more Middle Eastern, and you have some more spices and just a lot more interesting things going on this. Now, me personally, I'm not the biggest fan of the florals, especially when you first spray this. It takes about an hour or so, or maybe 30 minutes for it to kind of settle down and for it to really start to take a little bit more body. So I really do appreciate how this smells about an hour or so into it. It has a little bit of a salty muskiness in the base, and honestly, this is going to be a perfect springtime fragrance. So if you want something that smells mature, if you want something that you can wear to the office or just around family or running errands, I think this is going to be a great one. Maybe a little bit more suited for the office. Again, this one was about $30 to $40 depending on where you pick it up, and this is going to be an eau de parfum 100 ml bottle. So though it's an eau de parfum, it performs like an extrait de parfum. A lot of their fragrances do that, which is kind of mind-blowing, especially when you're giving the value for the longevity. So longevity on this one, I get well over 12 hours, and it performs really, really strong for the first 4 or 5 hours or so. These Nabeel fragrances tend to perform like a beast. So I would say that this is a beast mode version of Wulong cha with a lot more of that Middle Eastern Oriental twist. So if you want something in that vein with a lot more performance, check this one out. And that one is Nabeel's Fulad. And next up, we're taking a look at Nabeel's Ocean. So this is, again, the same style of box. It's kind of tactile. It's a little bit rubberized on the outside. And if we open it up, we've got the fragrance. At the top of the cap, you have this little miniature ship, and it definitely reminds me of something like a Monopoly game piece. I don't know, it's just kind of cheaply made like that, but I think it's okay. I do have to give them props for making the caps a little bit more unique because they do share the same exact bottle style. It's kind of taking inspiration from the Mind Games bottles where they're all the same style, but they have that slightly different cap to show off the differences in the fragrances. Atomizer check. Pretty strong puff and blast of fragrance, and I gotta say, I sprayed this stuff just in the air on a couple tester strips about an hour ago, and my door happened to be slightly cracked. I went downstairs, grabbed some coffee, and about 30 minutes later, I still smelled it just completely coming down through the stairs and through my house. And so it made it from one side of the house to the other in about 30 minutes, and I could not believe it. So this stuff is probably some of the strongest juice that I've smelled in quite a while. Whew. Smells good though. So if you already own Amir's Chaos in the Ocean, you will know that this is cloning Orto Parisi's Megamare. And so this is definitely in the same vein as that. I just want to get that out of the way. But again, like the last one, I feel like this ramps it up and it definitely adds its own twist to it and its own spice to it. Now, I don't own a bottle of Megamare by Orto Parisi. I have smelled it many times, and I try to familiarize myself with a lot of these fragrances when I'm out sampling them in some of the niche perfumeries, so that I can give you guys honest feedback and not talk about a fragrance and compare it to something that I've never smelled. While Amir's Chaos in the Ocean does a decent job at capturing that Megamare style of fragrance, it has that ambroxan, the cologne, the bergamot, and the seaweed, but it definitely does it a lot better in this one. So this one smells more photorealistic, and I think it definitely ramps up some of the seaweed. So I have a feeling like they're using a lot of Ultrazure, so that is giving off a really strong aldehydic, kind of ozonic and airy, salty vibe, especially on the top. You also have that very strong cologne in the opening that gives it that slightly melon-like, almost mouth-watering kind of vibe. And I gotta say, it definitely is very, very aquatic, and you have a crisp apple and pineapple in here. So you have some beautiful kind of fruity notes in here that combine with the very strong florals and other just rich notes, especially in the base. This also has quite a bit of of violet and iris, so it's going to smell a little bit lipsticky, powdery, and it definitely adds a mature quality to this. But there's also some cyclamen and some other old school florals in here as well, like the last one. But I think this definitely is an amazing twist to the already fantastic Megamare DNA. There's something so cold and aquatic smelling about this one, so I feel like when you spray it on and you smell it in the air, it definitely has a cooling quality to it. But the very strong sea salt and seaweed notes that they're using in here were a little bit overpowering at the beginning, but I feel like as I've sprayed this and worn it for about a couple weeks now, it's definitely mellowed out and it started to become a little bit more smooth. So if you're not the biggest fan of seaweed fragrances and that very heavy aquatic and marine-like fragrances like Bulgari Aqua, then you might want to steer clear of this one. Just like the last one, this one has a super heavy dose of rose and other florals, and it also has some creamy fruity notes. So you have some cherry, you have some coconut, and some waxy florals that just give this a really tropical tartness. So without smelling overly fruity, just a nice tropical tang. But if you want something very similar to Megamare with a lot of heavy influence from the Middle Eastern fragrances that are out there, you know, those rich compositions from the Spirit of Dubai or Nabeel, because they clearly have a style. They have that rose, that floral, and they have all of those kind of spicy notes. But if you want a beast alternative to Megamare, check out Nabeel's Ocean. Again, this is the 100 ml Eau de Parfum, but let's be realistic, this is a 15-hour fragrance at least. So you might want to go a little bit reserved on the trigger on this one. So you can definitely overspray like I've done in the past. So with any of these and a lot of the Nabeel fragrances, you don't have to worry about it coming off by the time that you get home from work. It's going to last you well into the evening. So this one is definitely money well spent. And that one is Nabeel's Ocean. So there you have it, 2 beast mode fragrances from the House of Nabeel for under the $40 mark. So I believe these are starting to pop up at fragrancebuy.ca and some other places. So definitely do your research and don't be afraid to buy from the TikTok shop. Just make sure that they are from reputable sellers and you're not getting scammed. So have you tried either of these fragrances or any other of the Nabeel fragrances in this line? Please let me know in the comments and I'd love to discuss your thoughts on them. That does it for today's video. Thank you so much for joining me, and if this was your first time, welcome to the channel, and hopefully you stick around because these videos are my gift to you. Thank you so much for watching. I've been Eli with Common Sense, and until the next time, bye-bye. You know what? I'm gonna bring out my hat. I think I'm gonna wear my hat today. Haven't worn it in a while.